AWS She Builds Tech Skills with your hosts, Mai and May.
Hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to AWS She Builds Tech Skills. My name is May and I am your host for today. And today we have got awesome host Jyoti. Hey Jyoti.
Hey May, how are you doing?
I am good. How is everything going on your side of the world, Jyoti?
Pretty good. It's bright and sunny outside, so the weather is pretty good, which is awesome. And just back from Sydney. I had a really good time in Sydney. I'm sorry I missed you, May, when I was there, but we were in the other office. But
how did that happen?
So yeah,
awesome.
It was a good trip to Sydney as well. I think the weather was pretty good. Had some good conversations with the other team members. So yeah, it was really good. And yeah, how's the weather in Sydney today?
Good. Today is a Friday, so we are maybe ahead of the time. Maybe New Zealand's even more ahead of the time on the other side of the world. So I am based out of Sydney, Australia. Jyoti is in New Zealand. Anyone's on the chat, we can see people on the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. We have a chat mod on the online as well. So Mai is also online today, moderating our chats. Usually you might have seen myself, Mai. Sometimes we do the hosts as well. So let us know where you're joining from. We're from Sydney. Today is a Friday, 2 p.m. So today we have got about a topic on the observability. So a little bit of a backstory if you haven't seen the previous episode. So this season that we have been talking, so we've been talking all about observability. So if you're interested in anything related to observability, Jyoti is the expert. She's part of the technical community at AWS, who is part of a observability tech community. And we've been doing this season for this is our third season. Jyoti, tell us a little bit about, the landscape of observability and what you're seeing within the community.
Yeah. So I think with observability, it's been interesting, right? So at the start, there was a lot of talk about the three different signals like metrics, logs, and traces, and ensuring you had good coverage across all the three signals. But there has been a recent transition in terms of that, and there's something called Observability 2.0, where with observability 1.0, as they used to call it, you were paying 3 times to just be able to get the same level of visibility for each signal. But observability 2.0 is taking a different look at it to see how you can maximize what you can get from each signal. So let's say it's logs. If you use structured logging, how can you maximize that and not have to pay, have a cost blowout because of observability? There's heaps of stuff in beta. I had mentioned it the last week as well, especially in CloudWatch. So what I'm seeing is that on the Gartner quadrant, CloudWatch is now a competitor. That they do say that it is the offering is becoming quite compelling. There are gaps in our solution, but then, as I said, there's heaps of betas right now, hopefully launching during reInvent, which will cover up those gaps. So yeah, there is. It's a very interesting space. I think it's thinking about observability as a first class fundamental requirement as opposed to an afterthought is something that I think increasingly we're seeing customers wanting to do that, just as you've seen that shift with security, right? So shift left security. I think observability as well, thinking about it upfront as opposed to having it as an afterthought is another trend shift that we're starting to see. Yeah.
That is a great observation. I love that. The shift left security, we've talked about that. We're still talking about it, but now observability becomes one of those trends that we see in the space. And a lot of my customers that I talk to also start talking about, the resilience and the resiliency of their critical application infrastructure. But the foundation is you need to have the eyes on your application to know that how well they're doing. Is your applications healthy, or are they scaling? Without observability, you can't tell, so you can't do anything if you can't see it. So I love that observation. If anyone's on the chat or online, if you have any experience with observability, or maybe you have a questions, this is a great time to talk about and to ask questions. We have experts online. So with that, Jyoti, let's introduce the guest speaker for this session.
Yes, absolutely. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Ruchi, who is a cloud architect. So Ruchi works in our professional services team, as we call it, ProServe. So her role is slightly different to what May and I and even Mai do on a day-to-day basis. So really excited to have her on the show today, and let's bring her on and ask her what she does and how her role differs from what I do on a day to day basis. Hey, Ruchi.
Hey,
Hi
Richard.
everyone. Thank you so much for
Welcome to the
having
show.
me.
You're
Thrilled.
welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. So, Ruchi, tell me a little bit more about what you do on a day to day basis at AWS.
Yep. So I'm a cloud architect, as you mentioned, in the professional services practice. I'm based out of Melbourne. I work in the ProServe delivery team. So at a high level, we deliver projects that are sold to customers, and I'm specializing in migrations. So from going from on-prem to AWS, any customer that's undertaking that journey, or from other cloud platforms onto AWS, we help them with that. And it's a very thorough and detailed process. We go through each of their aspects of what applications they have, data we go through the list of servers in their data centers, the list of applications, and it's quite a detailed and thorough process, for us to enable them to move to cloud. And we not just do the planning and organizing, but we actually also do the migration for them. And a big part of or a big success, a factor that spells success or failure of a migration, is how well they're able to operate once they move to cloud. It's not just coming over to AWS, but also being able to manage well and operate efficiently on AWS once they're there. Observability is a very, very big key factor there, as you said. It can be a make or break. Even if we have done a very good job of migrating and make sure that their target architecture is resilient, highly available, but if the customer is not able to really pinpoint issues when they happen, then it's a deal breaker for them. It's a very bad experience. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of having observability, the talk around observability right from the beginning as we start assessing applications. It's not something we look at towards the end, but right at the beginning, as you said, shift left, right. So yeah, spot on with that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And like, I think what I would like to know is, have you seen a shift in what the customers ask for as well? Just as we think that we are seeing that shift left, right? So are you seeing that from customers as well, as opposed to just from us talking about it from a best practice perspective? Has there been a shift in the maturity on the customer side as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the past, I've been on projects where customers usually give more importance to, obviously cost is one of the biggest factors when customers are thinking about undertaking this journey. But even after a business case was approved, people would or customers would start thinking about, okay, how do we do this, how can we get our foundational services set up. The focus was very much on just getting things over the line. But recently I've seen the shift where talks about operating model happen right in the beginning, along with, let's say, migration wave planning. Talk about observability, the tools, the processes, SLAs, incident management, all of those things go hand in hand with observability. And that starts happening pretty soon, if whether it's a data center exit or a single application move. This happens. This shift is happening definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think you're also in the observability technical field community, just as I am. Isn't that true? Yeah, you are, right? And how do you find that?
Very interesting, because what I like about it is, in being in ProServe, we do get to deliver projects which have a well defined scope, and we know what we are going to do. It's a set scope. We go there, deliver. But with being part of the TFC, what the opportunity that I get there is to work on spec recs, which are small specific requests from customers, and it's a variety of things that customers come to us for. Like some of the things that I've worked on are, ranging from as big as, okay, give me an observability strategy. How do I even go about designing dashboards? What should I be thinking? How can I avoid alarm fatigue? How do I tie in my observability with my incident management, right?
Yes.
Or it can be as narrowed down as, okay, I'm migrating a specific application and I want to move its observability from Splunk to AWS. These are my dashboards. How do I recreate these exact same dashboards in CloudWatch or natively on other using other tools?
Yeah.
So the variety of requests or problems that we get to solve is pretty good and gives you a very good exposure, the breadth and depth, which I like.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So today I think that you've got, I think, a session on CloudWatch log insights. And so let's dive into that. What say, May?
Sounds good.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so let's get started. I am going to talk about CloudWatch logs first, introduce the service, and show you talk about briefly what is the what are the features available as part of CloudWatch logs, and then we will dive a bit more into CloudWatch log insights, which is one of the features of CloudWatch logs, and
Yeah.
the demo is focused mostly around log insights. So CloudWatch logs, as you may or may not know, some people may or may not know, is the native logging service available on AWS. It is managed and native to AWS. What this allows, or what this enables, is the collection or aggregation of logs from many different sources. The sources could be on AWS or they could be on premise even. It's possible to stream logs from on premise infrastructure and applications onto AWS. And within AWS, also not just EC2 instances, but any of the serverless services on AWS, also like API gateway, Lambda functions, VPC logs, even all of those can be streamed into CloudWatch logs as a central place for aggregating and analyzing your log files.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I'm going to dive.
Actually, for my application, how do I get logs into CloudWatch logs? What would I use to? Can I use? Do I need to use the CloudWatch agent, or can I do it with FluentBit?
Yeah, definitely. There are many ways, as you said, Jyoti. Like for applications, you can, if your applications are on EC2 instances or on infrastructure that is on premise, you can deploy the CloudWatch agent easily on your servers. And then from within CloudWatch agent, it is possible to configure it in a way where you can specify which specific log files you want to stream. So those log files will be then sent to CloudWatch logs and can be captured there centrally.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start by describing some of the cool features. There are many cool features of CloudWatch logs, but uh, some of the features I'm going to describe, and then we will dive deep into CloudWatch log insights. So first thing I want to talk about is a feature called anomaly detection within CloudWatch logs. So anomaly detection is a feature where behind the scenes, CloudWatch uses AI/ML for uh, recognizing or finding the anomalies in log. So what you do is when you set up an anomaly detector, what CloudWatch does is let me take a step back. So you set this up on a specific log group, single or multiple. Um, so once you set it up, the anomaly detector trains the detector on your log data from the past 2 weeks. So the first time when you set it up, it may go on for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And what it is doing is in that time, it is training itself on the past 2 weeks data from your log groups. Once it has done that, and from that point onwards, it can then start looking or analyzing your logs to see if there are any anomalies. For example, um, if One example could be if at a specific time of a day of the week you are expected to receive, say, 10 messages in a log group, but on a certain day you're receiving 100 or 200, that's an anomaly. Or response time could be one anomaly, that it is supposed to be in this range but it has reduced, so that's an anomaly. Error HTTP error codes, right? Those kind of things can be easily detected by anomaly detection,
Yeah.
and this then flags it on your CloudWatch console for you to go and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it just analyzes the patterns and then detects and flags anomalies, so which is very good in proactively finding out issues.
Yes, so you don't have to. It basically is using kind of AI, as it calls out here, right? Which helps with telling you things that you're even not looking for, which may be a problem, which may not be impacting customers immediately, but it gives you
Correct.
that ability to be able to know that. I really like the example that you gave, like the fact that it is so well tuned or fine tuned, because you said 10 messages but 100 messages, like that's a small difference, but it is not, it's still good alert on that. So that's pretty
Correct.
cool to use. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next feature that I want to talk about is CloudWatch Livetail. So for people who are familiar with Unix, we have the tail command, and any system administrator swears by it. We know that when we are doing an important production deployment, our eyes are on that log and we are tailing it to see if there's anything that's going wrong in real time. CloudWatch gives you that ability. So you can set up Livetail on a log group or a log, wherein as the log is streaming in near real time, you can watch it as it comes, and you can apply filters then and there to immediately find out if there are any errors or anything that is happening which shouldn't be, and respond to it very quickly, rather than waiting for an alarm to go off after whatever 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. You can immediately catch it.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of Livetail, which is possible within CloudWatch.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, I'll move on to metric filters. So metric filters is a feature using which you can create metrics out of CloudWatch logs. Now, you might think we already have metrics. Why do I want to create metrics? But the benefit of doing this, and this is what I've seen customers using, is uh, with by creating metrics out of logs, you can create alarms on these metrics. Uh, Imagine the scenario that this was not the case traditionally. What would happen is someone would have to keep looking at the log files and keep looking for errors. So grep error or whatever, as we do it on Unix systems, right? Or grep for info error or something, HTTPS 500 errors or whatever, internal server errors. Um, and then it's a very reactive approach, and usually you've lost a lot of time in
Yeah.
that process. Whereas if we have the ability, if we use this ability to create metric filters, we can, using a regular expression, as you can see here, we can create a pattern. And CloudWatch, as soon as the log comes in, CloudWatch creates the metric out of it, and the alarm is already there, which is watching the metric. And if the threshold is breached, it immediately raises the alarm. So that's the benefit of creating metrics from log files. Again, your applications can have very specific very specific messages which signify an error, and our recommendation always is that those specific messages should be converted to metrics that can be alarmed on.
Yeah.
That's the
And I
benefit.
think this also probably ties into what Pratima had shared last week on container insights as well. So it does use, I think, with application signals, it builds on top of container insights, and container insights uses structured logs and then uses metric filters to create metrics from those logs. So that's so this is maybe just a slight deep dive into how the previous session was set up or
Yeah.
uses.
I find it this is very useful back in the days where we would troubleshoot like reactively when someone is facing incidents and somebody report on it, and I would
Yeah.
go in and find the logs for last hours to find out the errors because someone report on the incident. And if now looking back, and if we can set the metric filters, and if we see a particular match of that error message with the filter, and if it's appear for like, I don't know, maybe 10 times, that's the alarm. That's the threshold for us, and go and have a look at before actually somebody create a ticket on the incident. So this is very useful.
Yeah. And then there's a question about what are the costs associated with CloudWatch anomaly detection from Liquid Surya? And yeah, I think, do you want to take that, Ruchi?
Yeah, look, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to answer that, but I can definitely share, or we can share the link to CloudWatch pricing.
I'm gonna share the links on the
There is an
pricing very
example.
shortly.
Yeah, we have heaps of examples on our public pricing page. Example
Yeah.
11 is probably the one that you want to look at to get an understanding of how that works. But yeah, sorry, Ruchi, for putting you on the spot, but I was just thought
No,
you
that's
got yeah. Yeah, cool. We can continue, I think.
okay. Sure. So moving on from metric filters, this is an extension of metric filters, something known as EMF, which stands for Embedded Metric Format. Now, this is a very cool capability in CloudWatch, wherein you can actually create. So, if you're setting up an application on AWS and you want to emit customized metrics from it, which should and pass them on within your CloudWatch logs, then you have the ability to use embedded metrics format. This is a sort of framework that's defined by CloudWatch, wherein you can specify the metric that you want to emit, and you can define dimensions for it. Dimensions help us to narrow down a metric. For example, if your application if you want to create a metric for your application, which is whatever, let's say it has an special error code, error message called auth failure or whatever, and that message appears across different microservices in your application. So you have the ability to define dimensions for that metric. One of the dimensions could be application name, and if it's a containerized application, the other dimension could be the container ID, the instance ID. So dimensions are something that help us narrow down the metric, and the ability to define the metric itself and emit its value, that is possible. Emit its value or and the metric within CloudWatch logs. If you want to do that, then you can do that using embedded metrics format. I just wanted to call out that this ability is also present, and can be made use of.
Yes. And I just noticed that Gagan Singh is back on the stream. Welcome back, Gagan Singh. I understand you liked our session last time. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Yes, and happy
I
Diwali.
do remember Happy Diwali. I do remember the handles. Thank you for joining us again. With that, there's also one question, and I just want to clear that from Liquid Surya. So in the context of cost explore anomaly detection, that's slightly different. So here we're talking about CloudWatch anomaly detection, where you can create anomaly detections on your own metrics or AWS metrics, right? That's one type of anomaly detection. But cost anomaly detection is also another service from AWS. And if Mai can share the link in the chat, there is a cost anomaly detection features, and you can create your own monitors, you can create your own metrics to detect. And basically what it does is, for example, let's say your cost is like $10 per month, and suddenly it goes to, I don't know, $1,000, $500 suddenly. That is recognized as anomaly, and then it will create an alert. So that's a cost anomaly detection. And what Rishi and Jyoti is talking about is more of a CloudWatch application anomaly detection. So I just want to clear that. But all the great questions keep on coming.
Yes.
Okay.
And continue, Rishi. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you. Moving on, I'll now deep dive into CloudWatch log insights. So Log Insights is a very cool feature of CloudWatch Logs. It's basically a set of capabilities which uh, lets you really analyze your logs. Not just one log group at a time. You can aggregate multiple log groups and run queries that can filter data from those, that can parse those queries. You can parse those queries. You can create cool visualizations from whatever you have gathered out of these queries, out of these log groups. You can create visualizations, and those visualizations can be added to your CloudWatch dashboards, or even CloudWatch integrates with Grafana as well. So Grafana is a um, dashboarding solution basically. So it's your visualization solution for logs, and it accepts CloudWatch logs as a data source input. So with running these queries on CloudWatch and having the visualization on Grafana is a very powerful way of sort of looking at your CloudWatch data and making CloudWatch logs data and making sense of it. So Log Insights is a set of capabilities which has many functions and some other abilities that I'll talk about in the next two slides, that lets you do that. So as your logs are emitted into CloudWatch logs, and segregated into log groups, by default, CloudWatch logs captures some fields. It assigns some default fields to your logs, which are timestamp. So the time at which your log was ingested into CloudWatch logs, the name of the log stream, what was the message that was captured, and I think log stream ingestion time. Yeah, and these are the basic ones that are captured for any log file, any log that comes, no matter what the source of that log is, whether it's your application, whether it's EC2 log, or a service log on AWS, for example, VPC flow logs or Route 50C or anything. um, there is one difference though for the services that are natively emitting logs to CloudWatch logs, for example, Lambda, API Gateway, VPC, CloudTrail. These logs have fields that are natively understood by CloudWatch logs, in addition to the three or four default fields that I talked about. As an example, if you talk about VPC flow logs, so these are logs of VPCs. So any time that you have to troubleshoot an issue with network connectivity between two instances, let's say on AWS within two VPCs or from on-prem to AWS, the first thing you would look at is flow logs, because it captures all the network in and out of any in every EC2 instance and every interface on the EC2 instance. By default, CloudWatch logs understands additional fields that are from the logs that are coming from VPC flow logs. In interface ID is one of the fields that CloudWatch natively understands. So you're able to directly query by giving a specific interface ID of an EC2 instance, and you can straight away pinpoint to whatever was the network in and out logs on that interface ID. So that's the benefit of CloudWatch natively understanding fields. And just wanted to call that out. And all of this information is available, that what are the fields that CloudWatch natively understands, for example, for a Lambda function or Route 53.
That's
So,
very cool, Ruchi. Even I didn't know that. So I learned something. Thank you.
nice, thank you. I'll move on to describe a couple of cool capabilities of CloudWatch Log Insights. The first one is natural language querying. So as I said, with CloudWatch Log Insights, you can query. Its biggest flex comes from the fact that you can query your logs across instances, across log groups, services. It has a query language which is quite simple but powerful.
Yes.
And I will, within the demo, I will describe some of the most commonly used functions. But just saying that recently this feature has been added where, with the use of AI, ML, and Gen AI, we can use natural language and talk to CloudWatch logs in plain English, tell it what we want, and it converts the query that we have asked into an actual CloudWatch query that CloudWatch understands, and then we can get the results that we want. So, and I will be doing a demo of providing a demo of this when we get to the demo.
Yeah. And that's really helpful, so that you don't, like, if you're new to CloudWatch and if you don't know
Exactly.
the formats of
Yeah,
querying, this can really help accelerate that, because you're asking CloudWatch to do that for you, in your natural language. So that's pretty
absolutely.
powerful. Yeah.
It's very good for someone, as you said, who doesn't know and wants to quickly learn, because it shows you that, okay, this is the query that you gave, and this got converted to this actual query. So you can also learn from this.
Yeah.
Moving on, the other capability of CloudWatch log insights that I will be showing in the demo is patterns. Now, when CloudWatch ingests, as it ingests the logs, it is capable of creating or analyzing and coming up with the patterns that it has observed. So, for a given log group, if you run a query where you ask it to show you what are the patterns available in all the log events that have come, it is able to show you. For example, in a given log group, it might say that there are 6 to 7 patterns that I found, and here is the list from the screenshot that you can see. It will show you that here is the list of all the patterns that I have found, and here are the number of events that correspond to this pattern. So within each pattern, you are able to then go in and see what are the different values of things that are changing. So there might be some fields that are constant, obviously, because it's a pattern, and some fields that are changing. So you're able to drill down into each of those patterns, which is quite powerful when you're analyzing a big group of log events over a period of time.
Yes. So I think I'll just take this moment here, like Liquid Surya. I think you had asked a question earlier as well about. Okay, there's this question now, but I'll just talk about a question you had asked earlier about anomaly detecting when a log is probably not in the that you expect a log at say 10 o'clock every morning, and maybe that log is now missing. Will anomaly detection catch that? Yes, it will. It can catch that and trigger an alarm. And so thanks, Mai, for that the answers that you've given, that you can trigger an alarm and then trigger a lambda as an action to that alarm, which can customize the message that gets sent to your alerting system. So you can definitely do that. And yes, the other question that you have, I will give that to Ruchi. Are you able to tell us, and Liquid Surya, about the success stories of migration from Splunk to CloudWatch, particularly around cost implications of such a migration, or any other implications that you can think of?
Um, yeah, so this very good question, because most recently I worked on a spec rec which was around this exact requirement, that the customer was migrating an application to AWS, and they wanted to move on from Splunk to native observability to save on licensing costs within Splunk, which is, I think, a big cost factor for Splunk. Uh, Splunk also has a lot of or some other limitations, which is there is a limit on the amount of data that can be ingested in a day in Splunk. It's I don't know the limit exactly, but there is a limit which is prohibitive for some customers who are generating big log files. So in terms of migrating, and with respect to the cost and capabilities, Splunk, I would say, has um, more capabilities, because it combines not just observability, but it also combines BI capabilities. So you're able to create, or you're able to query more seamlessly, it would seem, on Splunk. Whereas to do the exact same things on AWS, you would use a combination of CloudWatch and maybe QuickSight,
Yeah.
because QuickSight gives you those BI abilities where you're able to create more detailed dashboards and specific runs, very specific queries. Um, but having said that, I haven't come across a case where we were not able to transpose the requirements from Splunk to native. In one of the cases, we've also used a combination of CloudWatch and Grafana, because Grafana, as I said, usually it is a very effective and very efficient tool, I would say, with a very mature ecosystem of plugins that can be used. So all in all, I would say there are benefits, and the reasons why customers want to move from Splunk is this. In terms of cost, I haven't seen anything um, prohibitive, that would have stopped customers from coming onto CloudWatch, and not coming onto CloudWatch and still deciding to stay, because there's no licensing involved on native observability tooling, right?
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I've had a similar case where the customer uses Splunk as their SIEM, so their security incident monitoring tool, and so AWS doesn't have one comprehensive SIEM offering, and so
Yeah.
migrating from Splunk to native, there requires a little bit more assessment. So of course there is as you may know, with Splunk, as Ruchi pointed out, if you had a license which allowed you to ingest 1 terabyte of logs, if you had more than 1 terabyte of logs, suddenly, maybe because of a new application, or maybe there was an error in your application, it would not get ingested, and when you really need it, it won't be available. Whereas in CloudWatch, we'll still ingest it, except that your cost will go up for that period, but anomaly detection can catch that. So when I say anomaly detection, even your cost anomaly detection via budget alerts, or in the CloudWatch anomaly detection. Now, having said all of that, Splunk is a partner of AWS, so we don't say that this is this versus this. Again, going back to Ruchi's strategy discussion, we really understand what you are trying to achieve, work backwards from that when making the recommendations. So yeah, I think we can go into the demo. Yes, I think
Yeah.
hopefully that helps Surya, Liquid Surya, and let's dive into the demo.
Cool. Rishi, if you want to start sharing, and we can go straight because we are halfway through in our live streaming. So if we can go into a demo straight away. And Rishi, when you are ready, you can, if you share your screen. I think, Jyoti, you made a really good point because in AWS, we often say customer that we have a building blocks of products or services, and the choice is yours. The choice is for a customer to choose. If there's limitations that's not supported by partners, you can fall into it, go into AWS, or vice versa. If you want the whole comprehensive, some of the customer want the whole comprehensive end-to-end solution, but we are more a Lego pieces where you can put together and build your own things, and you can customize as much as you want. So the choice is for the customer. Cool, Richie. We can see the CloudWatch console. What are we looking at?
Okay, so this is my CloudWatch console where I've set up the one observability workshop that we use with customers to give them a taste of what CloudWatch, the whole set of CloudWatch capabilities is all about. Now within this, I'm within CloudWatch. This is my AWS console, and I'm in the CloudWatch service page. Within that, there are a lot of functions, as you can see. There's alarms, logs, metrics, etc. I'm within the logs area here, and looking at log groups. So the way logs are organized within CloudWatch is through CloudWatch logs. And to just give you an example, let's say I'll just pick up one log group that I want to look at. This one. Within log group, there are log streams that are created, and these are created when your application is emitting logs. Let's say for this is for today, and there will be log streams created every day. Each log stream has a number of log events within it. So this is what it looks like, a log stream within CloudWatch. This is all the logs that are present in this log stream.
So
As you
Ruchi,
can
is it fair to say that if I had an application, like I think this one is the pay for adoption, so it's pay for adoption service that you have,
yeah.
and is it fair to say that a log group is the for maybe the pay for adoption service? So log group is associated to the service, and the log stream is perhaps related to each container on which it is running. So each container that has that container ID that has a unique log stream through which the logs come. Is that a fair
Yes.
statement to make?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Yes. So this application that I'm looking at is a collection of microservices. As you rightly said, pay for adoption is one of the services which is set up on ECS, and it has multiple containers running on it. So there is one log stream for this service, and within this log stream there are multiple log group. ECS pay for adoption is a log group, and within that there are multiple streams for different containers, and there's one for X-ray demons, because we've got traces set up on this application.
Awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, if you look at the log stream, by default it is showing you what is the timestamp. This is the time when this log was ingested into CloudWatch, and this is the actual message that came through.
Yeah. So has
Okay.
anyone used CloudWatch before? As Electrocat22 has asked. That's my. So if you've used CloudWatch, do let us know in the chat what you like about it, what you don't like about it even. Do let us know in the chat.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll jump into CloudWatch log insights, but before that, just want to call out that all the features that I talked about are here. Log anomalies is here. We can create anomaly detector if we want. Live tail is here. And I'm going to go back to where I want it to be. So log insights, yeah. What I've done for the purpose of this demo is I've saved some queries, which I want to run and give you a demo of what log insights is capable of. So I'll just go through those queries now. When it finishes loading, yeah, there we are. Okay, so before this, so just quickly give you an overview of what we're looking at. This is our log insights query screen. What we can do is by default it is the time is set to 1 hour, so we're looking at log entries from the past uh, 1 hour. But when we start querying and we apply specific functions here, filter or pass, it usually queries all the entire log group. Time zone is set to local. Here is where I can select the log groups. So what we were looking at, right, the ECS pay for adoption or whatever, those log groups, I can select one or multiple. This is the place where I will type in my query. And then when I do run query, this area is where it will show me the results. So what are the log events that came up against my query? If there are any patterns that it finds when I specifically ask it to find patterns, the results of that will come here. And visualization is when the query is run, I can visualize that result as a line or a stacked area bar or a pie chart. So let's just get started. So I've got my query saved here. The first one that I want to show is a default query. By default, when you select a log group, CloudWatch comes up with the default query. This is very simple. What we're doing here is I'm saying select the fields @ timestamp message log stream log. So when you see @, it's a field that CloudWatch understands natively. So this is CloudWatch specific field. This is not a field that I have defined in an application. So this is native to CloudWatch. I'm saying sort by timestamp descending and limit it to 1000 records, and run the query. I'll switch to logs. So it has found 1000. It is showing me 1000 records because I limited it. What it is showing me by default, so because I said select these fields, it is showing me these fields, as you can see: timestamp, message, log stream, and the name of the log.
Yeah.
So this is the most basic default query. Now, as you can see, I can export the results here to one of these formats, or I can, if I say add to dashboards, it will then add it to any dashboard that I would have probably created under here for my team. Okay. Any questions on this?
No, I
No,
think
I
there's a
think
lot of great comments. Oh, over to you, May.
no, I was just going to say it's a lot of comments going on, and yeah, people are finding it's very useful around life monitoring and observability. So yeah, this is really good.
Okay, cool. Moving on. The next one is filtering. This is again very powerful function, and it's used quite often. Now, I want to, obviously, when we are troubleshooting issues, we want to look for very specific fields. It could be a specific error message that I know the application will emit, or it could be an HTTP status code, anything. For example, here, this is a very simple example. I've said filter all messages which contain the string brown. So the command, the way to do that is to use the filter command on @message, because @message contains your entire log event that has come into CloudWatch, and I'm saying like brown. So it that means that it contains this string. Now, if I run this query, it is showing me, and I've set limit to 20. It is showing me 20 records which have the string brown in them. And if I just open one of them, it has this here. Pet color is set to brown. So with this query, I've gathered all the logs which have pet color set to brown. Okay. Moving on. Aggregation. Now, this is another function called stats, which is statistics, and another function count, which is basically doing a count of events. In this query, what I'm doing is I'm counting every 5 minutes what are the number of events that have come in. So this might be useful to capture things like, is if I'm an e-commerce website, right, to capture which is a busy time, or at which time of the day do requests spike up. This might be helpful in capacity planning, or even maybe using different observability strategy for periods of time when the load on the system is high. This is just one example. What I'm doing is count the number of messages and aggregate them in bins of 5 minutes. So if I run this query, limit to 20, it is showing me 13. It has brought up for this specific log group. Again, I said for the purpose of the demo, there's just one log group, but we can have multiple here. It's brought up 13, and it is saying from on this date, for this first 5 minute interval, 14:45, it is in descending order. So the most recent, there are 433 events. In the 5 minutes before that, there are 1323 events. If you look at visualization, it shows you very nicely that, okay, at this point, so for from in the last, say, 1 hour, uh, things have peaked at this time, and what were the number of events, and the lowest usage was at this time, and what were the number of events. So things like that. This was an example of aggregation and visualization.
Yeah, so this is very powerful that if someone does not want to use anomaly detection, they could use this to figure out the anomalies themselves by looking at these trends. Yeah, so I guess a more expensive way, I would say, as opposed to, but still possible, doable.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, right, we can change the visualization here, and
Yeah.
we can also add it to our dashboards.
I find it very useful, that feature where you can create a visualization from a different parts of the application and then put it into one dashboard. And I have one central dashboard that I can look at everything like that. It really matters because it can be noisy, right? Like you have a lot of logs and you have a lot of dashboards. So adding that into a one visualization add to a dashboard, I find it really useful. We are getting closer to the end of our show. So we've got about 2 minutes. If anyone have any questions regarding the observability and in the CloudWatch, please drop in the chat. And Richie and Jyoti, anything that you want to share with the audience in the last 2 minutes? Like what's your take on observability, on where we're going with this, like with the customer and the topic that we're talking to customer? What do you think?
Ruchi, do you want to take that?
Sure, I think yeah, as I said, like we've talked enough about the importance of having good observability. There are many tools out there in the market, and not saying that CloudWatch is the best or native observability is the best. I think we always do what is best for customer. There's a lot of factors to be considered. Obviously, features is one, but a lot of customers who have very strict, let's say, compliance or regulatory requirements, and they need to have specific teams accessing it differently, or SOC teams, SIEM teams who are who cannot access maybe on AWS, and they want to have their tool set up on premise due to whatever reasons. It is possible to integrate AWS with on premise also very easily. CloudWatch can stream to many tools out of the box. It can stream to Datadog, Dynatrace, Splunk, um, New Relic. So there is not one best solution for everyone out there, but each customer have their specific requirements. And I guess we always say customer first and customer obsession. So whatever is the best for a customer depending on their requirements is how we approach it.
Yeah,
Yes,
no, that's
absolutely.
great. And Jyoti, what do you think?
Absolutely. And I think I want to just add to what Gagan has asked about the predictive analytics, right? So, as I've said, we already have heaps of them launching soon at reInvent, even. So, they're currently in private beta today. I can't really talk to the features, but there's heaps of features to help with improving the predictive analysis or analytics along with CloudWatch. So if you don't know about reInvent and you've never been, there's the link there, so you can register and go get be one of the first to know what's being launched.
Yeah.
And if you have an AWS account team, do reach out to them, and they may be able to get you early access, and so therefore you can shape the future as well. So yeah, I guess if you know that, that's the other thing that I would add. But fully agree with what Ruchi has said, and it has been really lovely having you on the call today, Ruchi. That was really, really. I learned stuff about logs,
Yeah.
which so it was really, really good to have you on the call. And thanks, Mai, for the back end chatbot.
Yeah, Maya has been busy moderating on the chat as well. But yeah, like Jyoti said, thank you, Richie, for sharing your knowledge on the observability. I'm sure there are some takeaway from this. I got a lot out of it, and I really appreciate it. Jyoti, thank you as always for hosting today's show. Thank you to the audience who is joining on our live show. We will be back next week after with another area of observability. So we're covering observability in a very different perspective, different speakers. So stay tuned for the next session, and we will see you next time.
Happy Diwali. Bye.
Happy Diwali. Bye.